Have you ever walked into a space, maybe it's a high-end restaurant or a towering corporate lobby or I don't know, even just the living room of a friend you haven't seen in years and instantly felt your entire mood shift?
Oh, absolutely. Before you even consciously register a single piece of furniture.
Right. Like before you've even looked at a chair, think about it. Maybe your shoulders dropped a couple inches, your breathing slowed down, and you just felt this overwhelming sense of safety.
Yeah, or the exact opposite happens.
Yes, the opposite. Your pulse quickens, your jaw clenches slightly, and you get this inexplicable sense of unease or rigid formality. And, you probably chalked it up to the vibe of the room.
We all do that.
We blame the architecture, the paint job, or the music. But what if the invisible architect of that feeling, the force that is actively manipulating your psychological state at a biological level, was simply light?
It is arguably the most powerful, yet fundamentally least understood element of the spaces we inhabit.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. Because, you know, we're highly visual creatures, so we notice the tangible things. We notice the plushness of a velvet sofa, or we notice the specific shade of navy blue on a feature wall.
Right.
But we rarely notice the actual photons bouncing off those objects, unless, of course, the lighting is terribly aggressively wrong.
Like fluorescent office lights.
Exactly, the dreaded cubicle glare. But when you look at it through the lens of pure spatial sensory narrative, when it is designed with absolute intention, light is entirely responsible for scripting our emotional and physiological response to a space.
It dictates how we feel.
Yeah, it dictates how we feel way before our conscious brain has the time to process where we actually are.
And that profound invisible influence is exactly what we're going to deconstruct today. This deep dive is going to fundamentally change how you look at the environments you occupy every single day, from your office to your bedroom.
It really will change your perspective.
We are taking you on a highly specific, totally immersive sensory journey to the Grand Hyatt Kunming. It's located right in the heart of the massive Spring City 66 complex in China. And just to be clear right up front, this isn't a hospitality review.
No, we don't care about the room service menu today.
Exactly. We are looking at this specific 332-room tower because its lighting design literally just won the 2026 ILD Awards of Excellence at the Light Plus Building exhibition on March 10th.
Which is huge.
It is, by definition, a global masterclass in that invisible art we were just talking about.
Yeah, for context, the ILD, the International Association of Lighting Designers, is essentially the pinnacle of recognition in this field. It's the Oscars of lighting.
Wow, okay.
And they don't just hand out awards of excellence for making sure a hotel lobby is, bright enough so people don't trip over their own luggage.
Right, the bar is a bit higher than that.
Slightly higher, yeah. They award projects that actually advance the medium itself. What makes the Grand Hyatt Kunming so fascinating and frankly so important to study is that the lighting design is functioning as the primary storytelling device.
It's basically a fully articulated language.
Exactly. The international design team, which brought together Shanghai-based interior designers MQ Studio, the Australian lighting concept team, the Flaming Beacon, and London-based Isometrics Lighting Design. They didn't use illumination just to reveal the architecture.
Okay.
They used it to physically tell the ancient, perilous, and breathtaking stories of Yunnan province.
Which is a monumental task, honestly, because if you know anything about Yunnan province, it is geographically and culturally staggering.
It's incredibly diverse.
Yeah, you have snow-capped mountains, deep gorges, massive terrace farming cultures, ancient mining histories. To try and translate all of that into a modern urban tower without it feeling incredibly cheesy, that is the real trick.
That is the exact crux of the design team's perspective. To understand the lighting design logic here, we have to start with what they actively decided they were absolutely not going to do.
Which is what?
Well, when you have a luxury property situated in an area as culturally rich as Yunnan, the easiest, most common, and most disastrous trap to fall into is relying on tourist cliches.
Oh, right, the theme park approach.
Exactly.
Like just pasting traditional ethnic patterns onto modern drywall or hanging literal mass-produced replicas of local artifacts in the elevators and pointing a spotlight at them.
Which treats the culture like a museum exhibit rather than a living, breathing environment.
It's super superficial.
It is, and the human brain intuitively recognizes that superficiality. We know when we're on a movie set. The architectural firm behind the building, New York-based Cohn Peterson Fox Associates, they designed a very sleek contemporary urban tower.
So it's a modern building from the outside?
Right. So to honor that architectural modernity, while still grounding the building in its location. The interior and lighting teams opted for a highly abstract, deeply contextual interpretation.
Abstract being the key word there.
Yes. They spent intense periods studying the local environment, the raw craftsmanship, the natural atmospheric colors of Yan'an, and then they did something remarkable. They translated those observations into spatial sensory narratives.
So the light isn't just decoration.
Light in this hotel is not a decorative overlay. It is a calculated psychological tool.
Wow.
It is meticulously calibrated to guide your mental state from the chaotic sensory overload of the bustling city outside, all the way down to the intimate biological tranquility of your bed.
Okay, I want to take that journey. Let's actually walk through this building and deconstruct how they pull that off, because the mechanics of it are wild.
Let's do it.
We are starting right where the guest starts. Picture yourself stepping off the busy, noisy streets of downtown Kunming. You're right near the intersection of Beijing Road and Shengyi Street.
It's loud.
Very loud. You are surrounded by this massive urban mixed-use complex. Retail stores, office workers, traffic. Your brain is in high alert mode.
Pure cortisol.
Exactly. You walk through the doors into the entrance hall, and the very first visual impact is sheer scale. You find yourself looking up at a 32-foot-high ceiling.
Massive.
But it's not a flat, traditional ceiling. It features this spectacular, glowing, parabolic vault.
And that vault acts as the opening sentence of the hotel's narrative. Before we even get to the light, consider the geometry.
Okay, geometry.
A parabolic curve inherently draws the human eye upward. It creates an immediate sense of grandeur and awe. But the cultural anchor here is what grounds it. This isn't just a curved ceiling implemented for the sake of theatrical drama.
Right.
It is a massive architectural abstraction of Yunnan's iconic terraced rice fields.
Now, I've seen documentaries on those terraces, like the Hongahani rice terraces. They are incredible.
They really are.
They're these massive cascading steps carved directly into the steep mountainsides, and they hold pools of water that act like thousands of irregular mirrors reflecting the sky and the sun.
It's a breathtaking natural and agricultural wonder.
It is, but this is where I start to struggle with the design logic a little bit.
How so?
Well, how do you recreate the feeling of an organic, ancient, water-filled mountain terrace indoors using artificial light?
You do it through what the design team terms optical architecture.
Optical architecture, okay.
They didn't try to build literal water pools inside the lobby. Instead, they took cylindrical fluted glass tubes and chrome metal cylinders and used those highly machined materials to conceal the actual light sources.
Which are what?
Which are evenly spaced LED strips.
Okay, I have to push back hard on this.
Go for it.
You're telling me they wanted to evoke the organic, natural, sweeping beauty of ancient agricultural rice terraces, and their material palette to achieve that organic feeling was glass tubes, chrome metal, and LEDs.
That's the palette, yes.
Because my immediate thought is, that sounds incredibly sterile.
I get that.
It sounds like the set piece of a sci-fi movie or a high-tech laboratory. The human brain associates chrome and LEDs with machines, not nature. How does that possibly translate into a welcoming, organic feeling?
It sounds totally counterintuitive, I know. But this is where the hard physics of lighting design intersects with human psychology.
Okay, break that down for me.
If they had simply mounted exposed LED strips on that 32-foot ceiling, you would be absolutely right. It would feel like a sterile spaceship. The glare would trigger a stress response in the eye.
Like walking into a big box store.
Exactly. But the secret here lies entirely in indirect lighting and the physics of refraction.
Refraction.
Yes. The LEDs do not shine down at you. They are facing away. They bounce their light off the architectural wall behind them. Then that bounced light has to pass back through those fluted glass tubes.
Right, and fluted glass has those vertical ridges carved into it.
Exactly, and those ridges are the key.
Yeah.
In physics, when light passes from one medium to another, say from the air into the dense glass of those fluted ridges, it changes speed and bends.
So it's not just a straight beam anymore.
No, this is refraction. The fluting acts as a complex series of prisms. It takes that flat, bounced LED light and it bends it, breaks it, and scatters it.
Oh, wow.
This creates a deep sense of visual vibration and movement. As you walk beneath it, your changing perspective means the light appears to shift and shimmer.
That's brilliant.
It completely transforms the light from a static, artificial beam into a living, breathing material.
So the glass isn't meant to look like glass. The fluting creates that exact optical illusion of sunlight hitting a pool of water in those agricultural paddies.
Yes.
When the wind ripples the water, the sunlight breaks and shimmers. They are recreating the behavior of the natural world, not the literal physical look of it.
Precisely. They're recreating the optical phenomenon. It establishes an interplay of transparency and reflection that recalls water and sky.
That makes so much more sense now.
But the physics of refraction is only half the equation. The other half is the biology of color temperature.
Okay, let's talk about color temperature, because that's huge.
It's everything. They selected a highly specific, warm white LED that borders heavily on amber. If you measure it in kelvins, it's sitting quite low on the scale.
Like 2700 K or lower.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of a harsh, clinical, high Kelvin white that mimics midday sun and spikes your cortisol, you are bathed in this golden, enveloping glow.
It mimics the golden hour.
Yes, it does.
That perfect fleeting 20 minutes just before sunset when the angle of the sun is low. It has to pass through more of the Earth's atmosphere, and it scatters the blue light away, leaving only the reds and oranges.
Which is deeply soothing to us.
Evolutionary biologists always talk about how humans are hardwired to feel safe and relaxed in that specific amber light, probably because it mimics the firelight our ancestors used for warmth and safety at the end of the day.
That evolutionary tie-in is entirely accurate. So even though the physical materials are deeply modern, industrial chrome, glass, semiconductor LEDs, the behavioral output of the light is entirely organic and biologically soothing.
It tricks the brain.
It does. Add in the complementary decorative pieces they integrated, like the massive cloud-like glass sculpture that hangs in the space to reference Diane Lake, and you have a complete, immersive, spatial sensory narrative.
Diane Lake is a huge landmark there, right?
Yes, exactly. So the light tells your brain, you are no longer in the concrete jungle. You are in a landscape.
Think about what this means for your own environment at home, too.
Oh, it translates perfectly.
If you want a space, say your living room, to feel safe, warm, and inviting, you don't use harsh, direct overhead lighting.
Never.
You use indirect light. You bounce a warm temperature bulb off a wall to diffuse it. You put a textured lampshade over a bulb to break up the harshness. You are essentially manipulating the same optical physics on a smaller scale to change the emotional resonance of your room.
It's the exact same logic. Direct light is for interrogation or surgery.
Right.
Indirect light is for hospitality and comfort.
Okay, so we've had our breath taken away by this 32-foot golden, shimmering, refracted rice paddy ceiling. But we can't just stand in the entrance all day.
No, eventually you have to get to your room.
Exactly. We are inside the building, and now we need to actually check into the hotel. We have to transition from the awe of the grand entrance to the practical reality of navigating the building.
Yes.
And this brings us to an incredible architectural concept that governs the next phase of our sensory journey, the squeeze and release.
This is a foundational architectural technique. It was made famous by architects like Frank Lloyd Wright. But here it is executed masterfully through lighting logic.
Squeeze and release. Okay, explain how that works with light.
Well, the transition is everything. From the soaring, bright, visually active landscape of the entrance hall, the guest needs to move deeper into the hotel. Their mind is still buzzing from the city, and now it's buzzing from the grand entrance. How does light tell their nervous system to quiet down and prepare for the intimacy of hospitality?
You do it by physically and visually compressing the space.
Yes. To get to the reception, the guest has to walk through a lowered, deliberately dim corridor.
But wait, why is that compression so necessary? If I'm building a luxury hotel, wouldn't I want everything to be massive and bright all the time? Like, show off how big the building is.
You'd think so, but if everything is massive and bright, the brain becomes fatigued.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there is no contrast. There's no rhythm. A sensory narrative requires pacing. When the ceiling physically drops, and the lighting designers intentionally lower the lumen output in that corridor, your body naturally involuntarily reacts.
It's a physiological response.
It is a psychological squeeze. When humans enter a slightly darker, more enclosed space, our pupils dilate to take in more light.
Because it's dark.
Right.
Yeah.
And as a result, we naturally lower our voices. Our walking pace slows down.
It's literally a palate cleanser for the eyes and the mind. It forces a reset.
That's a great way to put it.
You are formally leaving the public realm of the street and the grand lobby, and you are being initiated into the private realm of the hotel. It builds this subconscious anticipation.
It does. It's like taking a deep breath in, holding it while you walk through that dim corridor, and then the release.
The release.
Exactly. The corridor ends, and the space suddenly erupts into a dramatic double-height reception area.
And because your pupils were dilated from the dim corridor, the impact of this new, bright space hits you twice as hard.
Exactly. You've primed the eye.
Your eyes are immediately drawn upward again, but this time it's not a glass and chrome vault.
No, it's completely different.
It is a massive, sinuous copper ceiling illuminated by incredibly precise, continuous uplighting.
And the transition from dim to bright, from compressed to expansive, makes that reception area feel monumental without needing to be aggressively oversized.
It's an illusion of scale.
Yes. And the introduction of the copper ceiling, specifically how it is lit, opens a completely new chapter in the cultural narrative of the hotel.
Which is Yunnan's incredibly rich mining history.
Right.
Now, copper is a fascinating choice of material to feature so heavily in a space meant for luxury hospitality.
It's definitely unconventional.
Usually, when we think of industrial materials, heavy metals, or the history of mining, we think of coldness, hard labor, and grit.
Dirt.
Yeah, dirt. Mining is not a gentle industry. But with the right uplighting, copper behaves completely differently, doesn't it?
It does, and that is a testament to the design team understanding the metallurgical properties of their surfaces.
The metallurgical properties, okay.
Yeah, copper inherently contains warm red, orange, and brown hues.
Right.
If you hit copper with a cool, direct downlight, it looks flat, dirty, and industrial. It looks like a pipe.
Which you don't want in a luxury lobby.
Definitely not. But the designers here use continuous uplighting. They are washing the surface with light from below. Because they're using a warm color temperature, the light interacts with the red and orange hues of the copper and captures what the design team describes as solar tones.
Solar tones. That's beautiful.
It essentially turns an industrial raw material into a massive radiator of warmth and hospitality.
It feels like standing under a stylized sun.
Exactly.
It is a brilliant way to pay tribute to the local mining heritage which built the wealth of the region without making the guest feel like they are standing in a damp, miserable mine shaft.
Right. It elevates the material. And notice how the lighting design manages scale within this single room.
How so?
Well, you have the grand reception desks where the actual business of checking in happens. Behind those desks, they installed 6 monumental, custom-designed copper wall sconces.
I saw pictures of those. They are massive.
Huge. They give the counter an elegant, almost imposing presence. It tells the guest, this is a place of importance. We are taking care of you. But directly adjacent to those imposing desks is the lounge area, where guests actually sit, wait, and converse.
And you don't want monumental lighting there.
No, if they kept the lighting monumental in the lounge, people would feel incredibly exposed.
Right, you don't want to feel like you're sitting on a brightly lit stage while you're waiting for your room key.
No one wants that.
Yeah.
So the lighting strategy changes entirely within the same room.
The ceiling architecture drops lower over the lounge, and the lighting shifts to bring the space back to a strict human scale.
Human scale is the perfect term for it.
I noticed this in the design specs. Between the back-to-back banquettes in the lounge, they didn't use overhead spots at all.
No.
They placed these massive copper floor lamps right on the ground, and the shades on these lamps are delicately shaped to evoke traditional local lanterns.
It's such an intuitive move.
It is, because think about how we behave in our own homes. When you are in your living room and you want to have a deep, intimate conversation with a friend or read a book, you do not turn on the blazing overhead recessed lighting.
Right, the big light. Never turn on the big light.
The big light, you turn on a table lamp or a floor lamp.
Exactly. You create a localized pool of light.
And that pool of light creates an invisible boundary. It pulls the people inside the light together and pushes the rest of the dark room away.
It creates instant intimacy. It introduces a softer, more domestic rhythm to the light.
Which is exactly what you want after traveling.
Right. And we should pause here to briefly acknowledge the staggering level of global collaboration required to make a seamless transition like this possible.
Oh, yeah. The logistics of this must have been insane.
It sounds simple to say, oh, they use warm light on the ceiling and warm floor lamps. But to get the perfect ambient glow from the copper ceiling, balance it with the task lighting needed at the reception desks so the staff can actually see their computers.
Because they still have to do their jobs.
Right. And then match that perfectly with the intimate glow of the floor lamps. Isometrics and the flaming beacon had to weave together lighting fixtures from a multitude of global specialists.
Who did they use?
They used JS Lamp, Ricardo Lighting, Formal Lighting, and Ledvance, all in the same spaces.
Which sounds like an absolute nightmare for an engineer.
A total nightmare.
Because, from what I understand, a 2700 Kelvin warm white LED from one manufacturer might have a slightly greener tint than a 2700 Kelvin LED from another manufacturer.
Precisely. The Kelvin scale is just one metric. There's also the color rendering index, or CRI, and tint variations. It requires highly technical, almost obsessive choreography.
You can't just plug them in and hope for the best.
No, they had to test, calibrate, and filter these different light sources to ensure they all played nicely together, maintained a consistent CRI, and supported that unified local context of solar warmth.
Because if one bulb was off, if it looked slightly too green or too cold...
The illusion of the mining narrative would shatter instantly.
Wow. Okay, so let's recap our sensory journey so far.
Let's do it.
We've gone from the shimmering, refracted agricultural fields at the entrance, through the dim, pupil-dilating palate cleanser corridor, and into the expansive, solar, copper-mining warmth of the reception.
We are checked in.
We have our room key. Now, we move deeper into the hotel to its primary space of celebration and gathering, the ballroom.
Yes.
And here is where the logic of the lighting design takes a massive left turn. The narrative gets surprisingly dramatic and, frankly, almost dangerous.
It is arguably the most unexpected conceptual leap in the entire project. Think about standard hotel ballrooms.
They're usually pretty boring.
They're typically designed to be intensely, uniformly bright. They want universally flattering, shadowless light because these rooms are meant for weddings, corporate galas, and conferences.
Right. You want to see the PowerPoint presentation. You want the wedding photos to look good.
Exactly. They are designed to be safe, functional boxes. But the design team for the Grand Hyatt Kunming looked past the safety of standard hospitality. They drew inspiration from a very specific, deeply traditional local practice.
The perilous art of honey harvesting on Yunnan's steep cliffs. I spent hours reading about this particular tradition in the source material because I was completely mesmerized. These local harvesters, often from indigenous groups in the region, climb sheer vertical cliff faces using nothing but fragile, hand-woven rope ladders.
It's terrifying.
It is terrifying. They hang hundreds of feet in the air to gather honey from wild, aggressive rock bees. It is a profound test of human courage against the verticality of nature.
It is.
But, how on earth do you translate the sheer physical terror and danger of hanging off a cliff into the lighting design of a luxury corporate ballroom?
It's a great question.
You can't just put up caution tape and harsh spotlights to make people uncomfortable.
It certainly cannot make the guests uncomfortable. The genius here is how they translate the environment of the cliff without the literal danger.
Okay, how?
They did it by fundamentally flipping the traditional script of ballroom lighting. Instead of relying purely on illumination blasting the room with light to eliminate dark spots, the designers achieved their narrative by using shadow as a primary building material.
Shadow as a material. That is a heavy concept.
It really is.
When we think of designing a room, we think of adding things. We add drywall, we add paint, we add light. But you're saying they designed the room by strategically withholding light.
It is a masterclass in lighting logic. Think about the visual profile of a sheer cliff face.
Okay.
A cliff is not flat. It is defined by its crags, its immense depth, and the harsh, stark contrast between the rock face that catches the blazing sun and the deep, terrifying crevices that remain in absolute darkness.
Right. Contrast is what makes it look jagged and dangerous.
Exactly. To bring that visual rhythm into a flat-walled ballroom, the architects created large, full-height vertical niches set deep into the walls.
So like tall, narrow cutouts in the wall.
Yes. And inside these dark niches, the lighting designers placed illuminated totems.
And these vertical collars of light inside the dark recesses visually evoke those fragile rope ladders the harvesters use hanging down the side of the mountain. Because the light is contained within the niche, it casts deep, dramatic shadows on the walls around it. The room feels grounded by these heavy, vertical contrasts.
It does. And then you look up, the ceiling geometry is just as intentional.
The honeycomb ceiling.
Yes. It features a sprawling, textured, three-dimensional pattern that is clearly reminiscent of a honeycomb.
But wait, earlier we talked about avoiding the theme park approach. Having a literal honeycomb ceiling in a room about honey harvesters sounds dangerously close to being cheesy.
It walks a very fine line.
It really does.
But it succeeds because of abstraction. It avoids looking like a cartoonish theme park because the honeycomb form is highly geometric and abstract.
It's not painted yellow and black with little bees on it?
No, thankfully not.
Mm.
It seems to emerge naturally from the architectural structure of the ceiling itself, rather than looking like an applied decoration.
Mm-hmm.
It creates a strong focal point without ornamental excess. But here is where the technical brilliance of the lighting design becomes absolutely critical. If you have a beautifully textured 3D honeycomb ceiling, how do you light it?
Well, I mean, the amateur approach would be to just point a bunch of powerful floodlights straight up at it so everyone can see it.
And if you do that, you instantly destroy the architecture.
Because it flattens it out.
Yes. If you blast light directly at a textured surface, you wash out all the shadows. The human eye relies on shadow to perceive depth. Without shadow, a 3D texture looks completely flat.
It would just look like a flat ceiling with some weird lines on it.
Exactly. To shape the relief of that honeycomb, you need to employ what lighting designers call verticality and contrast. The beams of light in this ballroom are meticulously sculpted.
Sculpted light?
Yes, they are directed to graze across the surface of the ceiling, rather than firing straight at it.
So the light is hitting the texture from a sharp, shallow angle, like skipping a stone across water.
Precisely. The physics of grazing light means that the beam hits the protruding ridges of the honeycomb, illuminating them brilliantly, but the light physically cannot reach into the recessed pockets behind those ridges.
Wow.
Those recesses are cast into deep shadow. The light is quite literally shaping the three-dimensional relief of the ceiling for the human eye.
I can totally picture that. But doing all of that intricate grazing, throwing sharp beams of light horizontally across a ceiling in a room full of people, that requires incredible precision.
Oh, it's incredibly difficult.
Because the cardinal sin of lighting design is glare. If one of those beams strays and hits a wedding guest directly in the retina, the magic is ruined. They're just going to be annoyed.
It is a monumental technical and engineering achievement. The designers had to calculate the exact throw angles and specify fixtures with intense glare control louvers.
So the light stays exactly where it's supposed to.
Yes. The result is that they maintained a sauced, festive, honey-colored atmosphere for the guests mingling on the floor, while visually expressing the daring, vertical danger of the cliffside harvest directly above them.
The room gains its grandeur and its clarity not through overwhelming brightness, but through the careful, deliberate absence of light in specific, calculated areas.
Shadows doing the heavy lifting.
This is such a profound concept for anyone listening. We spend so much time, energy, and money thinking about the light bulb, what wattage to buy, what fixture to put it in.
Always.
But we almost never think about the shadow. The shadow is just as crucial in creating texture, drama, and mood. The shadow is what actually gives the light its shape and its meaning.
A perfectly lit room is rarely a room where every single corner is brightly illuminated. A perfectly lit room has contrast, it has hierarchy, it has mystery.
I love that.
That is the fundamental lesson of the ballroom. You need the dark crevices of the cliff to appreciate the sun hitting the rock.
Okay, so we've survived the perilous, shadow-filled beauty of the ballroom. The night is over, and our journey through the hotel concludes. The guest leaves the grand public spaces, rides the elevator up, and retreats to their private sanctuary, the guest room.
The final destination.
And this is where the MQ Studio, Isometrics, and Flaming Beacon design team reveals one final, brilliant psychological trick.
Yes. The introduction and the strict rule of color.
Okay.
To appreciate this, we have to look backward for a moment. If you track the spatial sensory narrative we've discussed so far, from the agricultural entrance to the dim corridor, the mining reception, and the cliff harvesting ballroom, the lighting palette has been incredibly disciplined.
You're right. It has been strictly confined to variations of warm whites, ambers, and the natural inherent tones of copper and shadow.
Yes, aside from the natural color of the materials themselves, the light hasn't introduced any artificial colors.
It's like watching a masterful film that is shot entirely in rich, beautiful, high-contrast black and white or deep sepia.
That's a great analogy.
And then suddenly, for one specific, highly emotional scene, a single object appears in full, vibrant color. The guest room entrances, the actual thresholds to the rooms, are the only place in the guest's entire journey through the hotel where explicit, saturated color is introduced into the lighting design.
The only place.
Why? Why exert all that discipline just to break it at the doorway?
Because of the psychological weight that a sudden introduction of color carries for the human brain.
Okay, explain that.
Well, after experiencing these grand, sweeping, massive narratives of agricultural landscapes, industrial mining, and cliff scaling, The guest's nervous system needs a definitive signal that the public journey is over.
The story is ending.
Right. The introduction of color signals a radical change in scale and intent. It says, you are entering the intimate sphere.
How?
At each room threshold, mounted on the wall, there is a woven bamboo reflector.
And these reflectors aren't just painted wood. They are made from natural bamboo fibers that have been individually, painstakingly dyed before being woven.
Correct. And the patterns woven into the bamboo are concentric, circular designs. These patterns represent the famous, deeply vibrant four-season floral landscapes of Yunnan province.
So finally, the flora of the region is introduced.
Yes. The color is intentional, it is rare, and it's highly localized to the doorway. But what truly elevates this threshold from a nice piece of art into a dynamic sensory narrative is the integration of the element of time.
The element of time, how so? A woven piece of bamboo doesn't change.
The bamboo doesn't change, but the light interacting with it does. The lighting at the threshold doesn't just stay static.
What does it do?
The design team programmed 4 distinct lighting scenarios that shift automatically throughout the 24-hour day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how you perceive that floral bamboo weave, the exact colors your eye registers, completely changes depending on what time you walk up to your room.
Exactly. And this is deeply tied to human biology and circadian rhythms.
Circadian rhythms, the body's internal clock.
Right. In the morning, the light illuminating the bamboo leans toward a much cooler, blue-heavy temperature. We know biologically that blue spectrum light suppresses melatonin production in the human brain.
It tells your brain to wake up.
Exactly. It signals to your body that the sun is up, it aligns with your circadian rhythm, and it helps wake you up as you leave your room for the day.
But if you come back to your room at 10:00 p.m., that same blue light would be disastrous.
It would ruin your sleep.
You would trick your brain into thinking it's noon, spiking your cortisol.
Precisely. So as the day progresses, the light source subtly shifts. The blue spectrum is gradually removed. By the evening, it transitions through to a warm sunset red and amber.
That is incredibly thoughtful.
It brings the dyed fibers to life in different ways throughout the day, highlighting different colors in the weave, while biologically preparing the guest's nervous system for sleep.
It does all this without overpowering the natural, organic texture of the bamboo material. It subconsciously connects you back to the natural passage of time, to the rotation of the earth, which is something that is so easily, almost inevitably lost when you are deep inside the artificial environment of a massive 332-room urban hotel complex.
A biological anchor.
It is. And then finally, you open the door, you cross that color-shifting threshold, and you enter the bedroom itself. The very last touch of the lighting design, the final sentence of this massive story, happens right where you sleep.
The bedroom sanctuary.
Right.
Mounted on the walls near the bed are 2 decorative, basket-like nets. The lighting interacts specifically with the weave of these nets to cast highly textural, complex, yet incredibly comforting shadows directly onto the bedroom walls around the pillow.
It's the absolute perfect psychological conclusion. Think about the entire journey we just took, tracking the light.
It's quite a journey.
It really is. We started out on the busy, chaotic, concrete streets of Kunming, bombarded by traffic and noise. We stepped into a grand entrance that used the physics of optical refraction and glass prisms to simulate the vast, sweeping scale and golden hour shimmer of ancient agricultural rice terraces.
Right.
We were then visually and physically compressed into a dim, quiet corridor, forcing our pupils to dilate and our breathing to slow.
The squeeze.
The squeeze. And then we were released into the monumental solar glow of the region's copper mining history.
The release.
Yes. We celebrated under the dramatic, dangerous, shadow-carved ceilings of the cliff harvesting ballroom.
Using shadow as a material.
Exactly. And finally, we were biologically guided by the circadian, color-shifting rhythms of the floral bamboo thresholds, right into our room, where the light cast the quiet, intimate domestic shadow of a woven basket right beside our heads.
That is the ultimate definition of a spatial sensory narrative.
It really is.
Every space we walk through has its own specific story, its own biological rhythm, and its own targeted emotion. And all of it was dictated by the precise, engineered control of photons.
It elegantly and invisibly connects the deep local culture of Yunnan, the highest levels of optical and electrical engineering, and fundamental human evolutionary psychology.
And that is exactly why the Grand Hyatt Kunming MQ Studio, the Flaming Beacon, and Isometrics walked away with the highest honors at the ILE Awards.
They didn't just light a building.
No, they didn't. They proved, unequivocally, that light is a profound language.
It speaks directly to our subconscious emotions faster than words or architecture ever could.
It really does. And that brings us to the most important takeaway for anyone listening to this deep dive.
Yes. What does this mean for the listener?
Well, we've spent this time exploring how world-class, award-winning designers script a psychological journey using light, glass, and copper in a luxury hotel. But the physics and psychology of light do not stop working when you leave a hotel.
Oh, that's a good point.
Think about your own home right now. Think about your bedroom, your kitchen, your living room, your home office.
The places you inhabit and work in every single day, the spaces where you raise your family or decompress after a hard day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The next time you walk into a building or even your own house tonight, I want you to actively look up. Look at where the light is coming from.
Is it a bare bulb glaring from the ceiling? Is it bouncing off a wall?
Right. Look at what materials the light is hitting. Look at the shadows it creates or fails to create in the corners of the room.
Ask yourself, what is this space, through its lighting, trying to tell my nervous system to feel?
It is a critical question.
Mm.
Because every lamp you turn on, every harsh overhead bulb you leave glaring, every dimmer switch you use or ignore is currently writing a sensory narrative about your life.
Wow.
If a master lighting designer walked into your house right now, well, what story would they say your light is telling? Is it a story of anxiety and harsh interrogation? Or is it a story of warmth, safety, and rest?
And more importantly, is it the story you actually want to live in? That is a fascinating, slightly intimidating question to leave on. Maybe it's time for all of us to turn off that blazing overhead ceiling light and invest in a good floor lamp with a warm amber bulb.
I highly recommend it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the invisible psychological language of light. The next time you walk into a room and instantly feel your mood shift, your shoulders drop, or your pulse quicken, you'll know exactly who the invisible architect really is.